So injuries, along with any pro athlete, is inevitable. Some miraculous dancers sort of get through without injuring themselves, and that's rare. Being injured is quite common. Having bad injuries is unlucky. So I did suffer a couple of bad injuries. So I'd just done, obviously, this great exam. I'd gained a reputation. I'd practiced every night leading up to it, so I felt really on top of my game. What I haven't mentioned yet is obviously leading up to that point, I became very obsessed with the work and also how I looked. So leading up to that point, I had also been told earlier, like maybe 6 months earlier, that I needed to lose a bit of weight, even though I definitely wasn't big at all. And so you take that to heart very heavily as a ballet dancer, because how you look is so important. It's an aesthetic sport, artistic sport, whatever you want to call it. So along with practicing, along with working really hard, I also became obsessed with what I was eating. So I ate very, very healthily, but to a sort of severe degree. And I had a very high metabolism at the time, so I lost a lot of weight. So much that my teacher started to get concerned about me. And when a Russian ballet teacher is concerned about how you look, like being too thin, then you're obviously extremely thin for them to worry about it, because they really like their dancers very thin. And for her to worry about me just told me how thin I was. And it's funny, when you're sort of working day in, day out and you're looking at yourself every day, you don't really see how thin you are. But this leads to my point of injuries, because I was so thin, I obviously didn't have any normal hormone function or anything, and my bone density was getting increasingly lower. So my bones started to be quite fragile, because obviously, you know, when you're really thin, your bone density goes lower because your hormones don't work. After this whole period of work, and being increasingly thin, even though I was getting great results and I was getting success, and I associated a lot of the success with how I looked as well. And so I became obsessed with that along with everything else. That's not sustainable. And so closely after that, I had a whole summer, and I was dancing with the Mikhailovsky Ballet, which is a small company in St. Petersburg, which I subsequently worked with. They wanted me to work with them all summer because they actually wanted to hire me early. And I said, no, I don't, I want to finish school. But I danced with them in Swan Lake in the Corps de Ballet for the whole summer. So I didn't have any rest. So when I arrived back at school, my teacher said, have you put on any weight? And I said, oh, a little bit, but it wasn't really much at all. And when I saw her, she was like, no, there's no change. And I'd obviously been working all summer, so it was hard for me to gain weight, and I was still like obsessed with how I looked. And so by this point as well, I started to get a little bit of pain in my back and a bit of soreness in my spine, which I ignored because I just wanted to keep going. But on the first day of my graduation year, I was just jumping like I normally did. We were just doing a petit jeté, small jeté. And then it was like someone stabbed me in the back, and I got the most excruciating pain in my whole pelvis area, and it almost winded me. So I got this huge pain, and I kind of gasped and went like this, and I went to go to the side, to the bar, and just was like, just breathing in for a second, like nothing else mattered anymore. And I started to panic then, and this is the first day I remind you of my graduation year. We'd had the whole summer off. I turn up and this happens. And so I was panicking, and I realized very quickly that something was horribly wrong. And we had pas de deux that day. I was in agony the whole time, and I was going into the back room and crying from the pain, I would ring my mum and say, "Mum, I'm in so much pain, I don't know what's wrong." And I tried to continue for a week after that, doing basically nothing. I said to my teacher, I can't bend forwards, I can't bend backwards, I can't lift my leg, I can't do anything. And she said, "Is it getting any better after a week?" And I said, "No, I can't do anything." And so I said, "I think I need to go home. I think I need to check it out." So I go home and fast forward, and it turns out I'd fractured my back. So I'd had a lower back fracture. So that took me off for like 6-7 months of my graduation year. So it's kind of heartbreaking, you know. I'd just gained all that reputation. But then I discovered even more about my body, talking about why this whole platform exists now. I learned so much about my body, making it stronger, recovering from a serious injury, what muscles need to be strong and why. So I went back after 6 months. She thought I'd just been lying on the sofa for that long, but I had been doing like 8 hours a day of rehab. I did not stop. And I went back, and after getting used to the ballet classes again, which took definitely a few days just to get used to it and the slope and everything, I felt a bit strange being on the center bar again. I'd been gone 7 months, you know, but I was visibly stronger and my turns were better. I was moving faster. I was jumping higher. I had more maturity about me. My core was stronger. Everything was better. And so I performed so much better in that exam than I did the year before because of how much work I put into the rehab. So injuries in general, obviously they're awful and they're so hard to go through mentally more than anything. You can always come out of it better than before, and that's what happened to me. And it's something, if I had to go back and do that all again, I think I would, because you learn so much from an injury. And even though it's painful, literally, it's not wasted time.